Right. Hello. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm back from Alabama at Mises University. I had a great time out there in Auburn, and if any of you guys are ever thinking about going to Mises University, I highly recommend it. It was a great time and a lot of fun. So, my topic for today's video is the midterm elections, and the midterm elections of our lifetime is what I titled it, because I think that's exactly what they're going to be. I'll probably make a few more videos about the midterms because they're still a few months off, and we don't exactly know what's going to happen. A lot can happen in the next few months, but I think these are going to be the most consequential midterm elections of my lifetime. And I think this is right up there with the 2016 elections, because there's so much riding on these midterms for both sides. So I was on S.E. Cup show yesterday, and I was asked about the midterm elections. I'm going to throw the link to that video clip that they put out in the description here. And I was asked about the midterm elections, and I basically said that there's this huge disconnect between people who live in the cable news, mainstream media bubble and regular Americans. And my point is that things like, the hysteria that you've noticed over the last couple months, and the media has been pretty hysterical since Trump burst onto the scene, but it's really picked up in the last couple of months. I think anyone paying attention has noticed that. And no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, I think you would acknowledge that the intensity is picked up. And I think it's because we're getting close to these midterms, and the Democrats and the mainstream media and all these different anti-Trump factions are starting to realize how much they have riding on these midterm elections. And that's why you've seen this stuff, get so elevated. So what's just to, an overview of kind of the midterms, right? Historically, what's normal is that the Democrats would have a great midterm election. That's usually what happens. The opposition party usually has a very good first midterm after a president's elected. So, Bill Clinton lost the House, and Barack Obama had, that was like the Tea Party wave came in 2010, and he lost the House and the Senate. And that's historically what's normal. So in some ways, that's what's expected of the Democrats. However, if you're paying attention to politics over the last 2 years in America, nothing about it is historically normal. So I don't think you can just count on the traditional norms to go your way, because, if things were historically normal, then Jeb Bush would have won the Republican nomination and Hillary Clinton would have won the presidency. But none of that happened. So, Trump's kind of a wild card, and the American people are in a different place. And the disconnect that I was talking about in the video clip you can take a look at is it's like the mainstream media is flipping out like, oh my God, look at these family separation. Look at the Trump meeting with Putin, and oh my God, it's, you got the former CIA heads saying that Trump's guilty of treason. I mean, like, that's some pretty strong language. The president of the United States is guilty of treason. And oh my God, he sided with Putin over his own country defined as the CIA. But so for all this, the latest NBC Wall Street Journal poll shows Trump with an all-time high approval rating. You think there's a disconnect there? You think there's a disconnect between the media, who's basically saying this guy is treasonous? If you just watched mainstream media, if you just watched cable news, you would think, oh my God, Donald Trump, he's done. He's going to get destroyed in these midterm elections. But then look at the polls. There was no substantial drop for Donald Trump after the family separation. In fact, and this is one of the craziest things, it looks like his approval rating amongst Hispanics went up. Now, you would think that's like a really interesting story, but no one seems to really want to report on that. By the way, one of the most interesting stories of the 2016 election was that Donald Trump did better with the Latino vote than Mitt Romney did. And for all that build a wall, we're going to deport them, they're sending rapists and all that other stuff, he did better with the Latino vote than Mitt Romney did. There's a really interesting piece of data, but again, no one really seems to want to report that because it doesn't seem to help the narrative. But so Donald Trump, after all this stuff that we've seen, his approval rating has gone up. Not like dramatically, he's at like 45% or something like that. It's pretty good, not fantastic, but given the fact that the Democratic establishment thinks he's literally Hitler, the half the country hates him, or at least half the voting population seems to hate him more than any president that has ever existed. The mainstream media is completely against him. The deep state's completely against him. Despite all that, his approval ratings are all right. And the more you look into the polls, evidence for this blue wave doesn't really seem to exist. And so here's the thing. This is why the midterm elections this year are so consequential, right? So if the Democrats win, it's quite possible they're going to move to impeach Donald Trump. This is what their base wants, and a lot of them have already floated out the idea. And you do have a special prosecutor who's putting together some type of investigation. I'm sure at some point he'll let the American people know what the hell's going on with that thing. I mean, it's been over a year, and we've basically gotten no information. So we'll see. But at some point, he's going to give us something. And if basically there's not really much of a legal standard of what is an impeachable offense and what isn't. It's basically whatever the Congress wants. So if the Democrats take over, there's a good chance they're going to impeach him, and they're probably going to block, pretty much all of Trump's agenda. So there's a lot riding on it for the Republicans. However, Donald Trump, since it is the historical norm, Donald Trump can kind of play it off like that. Like, yeah, same thing happened to Bill Clinton, same thing happened to Obama. It is what it is. On the other hand, if the Democrats don't have a blue wave, if the Republicans either lose a little bit in the House, or if basically, let's say this: if the Republicans keep the House and the Senate, okay, and they have a very slim majority in the Senate, but if they keep the House and the Senate, and they stave off this blue wave, the Democrats are going to be shattered. Okay, this will do it to them. You're going to see, there's already a civil war in the Democratic Party going on, but you're going to see that intensify like crazy. You're probably going to see the Democratic Socialists take over because they tried it the corporatist neoliberal way, and they're losing everything. But when you put all your chips in on this guy is literally Hitler. He's a danger. It's not like fringe people are saying Trump's going to be a disaster. You had Paul Krugman, the number one economist at the New York Times, who should be a fringe person, but he's not, who said that the stock market was going to plummet when Donald Trump came in. But you know what? The economy's actually doing pretty good. Now, I don't think that's going to last, certainly not till 2020, but it probably will last through the midterms. I don't think we're going to have a recession in the next few months. Might possibly get one next year. And, hey, I wouldn't even be shocked if it happened in the next few months. But there's a good chance that it's going to last. So you've got this. It's like, oh, well, he can't have his finger on the nuclear button, but now he's going around and, making peace with North Korea, trying to make peace with Russia. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a war hawk. He's doing all sorts of terrible shit in the Middle East. But, the American people, I think, are pretty numb to that overall. They don't really seem to care, unfortunately. But if Donald Trump, if the Republicans end up doing well in this election, the Democrats, you're going to see a lot of craziness. You're going to see the Democrats, they're just going to up their rhetoric. I'm worried you're going to see more and more violence in the streets, like Antifa type of stuff. And I can promise you this right now. If the Democrats do not have a blue wave in November, they will not accept the legitimacy of the elections. They're already laying the groundwork when you hear them talk about how Putin, the Russians interfered in the last election, and they say, and they're still trying to interfere in this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up losing. They're gonna blame the Russians. They're gonna end up blaming, I don't know, like gerrymandering or whatever else it is. It'll be something else. They won't accept the legitimacy of it, and you're gonna see some really, really wild stuff. I'm a little bit scared about what could happen in this country. But look, you have a president who's sitting at his highest approval ratings, right around 45%. And Trump certainly is vulnerable. It's not that he's like, he's not sitting at 70% approval ratings. He's very, very, very popular amongst his Republican base and very, very, very unpopular amongst the Democratic base. So if you have a president sitting at around 45%, and you have, let's say the Democrats had some great candidates, they had a coherent message, and they were a unified party, they'd have a chance of having a very good midterm. But the problem is they don't have any of that. What you have going on in the Democratic Party right now is nothing short of a civil war. And it's really, even though Bernie Sanders, took it easy on Hillary Clinton, and he ultimately endorsed her, and he was always kind of there. In a weird way, he always kind of had her back, because, he'd say things like, enough about the emails, and, then he came out and endorsed her and tried to get all his young people to go along and support her. But the problem is that what Bernie Sanders represented, and the people who believed in him, were the antithesis of Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's like they stoked up this passion, and if you're the anti-Wall Street guy, how are you gonna support the candidate of Wall Street, Hillary Clinton? And this is what's going on in the Democratic Party right now. This is why you've got this divide between the corporatist, war hawk, neoliberal, establishment Democrats and the Democratic Socialists. Now I'm just over here trying to figure out who I hate more. I'm not quite sure about that. I probably hate the neoliberals more because at least the Democratic Socialists seem to be more anti-war and anti-war on drugs and stuff like that. But it never really seems to come up that much. They're much more comfortable talking about income inequality. By the way, this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the more I see of this woman, I do not think she is ready for prime time. But it doesn't matter. That's where all the energy in the Democratic Party is. So you're going to see them have this civil war. The party's gonna be more divided than ever, and I think there's going to be more violence. There's going to be more craziness, and shit's going to get interesting. But it also might be scary and violent. But anyway, I'll probably make several more videos on this because we've still got a few months. And as I said, I do think this is going to be the most important midterm elections of our lifetime. So unless maybe you're like 65 years old or something like that, there might have been some big ones that I'm forgetting about, but certainly of my lifetime. And I got to say right now, it's pretty amazing the disconnect between the mainstream media and where the people are actually at. It's like every day there's a new Trump hysteria, and it's not moving the needle at all. And I got a lot of feedback. A lot of people were tweeting at me, like angry people who hate Trump, from the clip. If you want to check it out, it's in the description. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. The American people are outraged. I'm outraged, and everybody I know hates Donald Trump. And a lot of tweets like this. And it's like, yeah, no, I'm not saying nobody's outraged. Like, yeah, the people who hate Donald Trump really, really hate him. But just look at the disconnect. Look at the coverage of the family separation, and then look at his approval numbers. Look at the coverage of the Putin summit, and then look at his approval rating. Shouldn't you see, if there wasn't this huge disconnect, shouldn't you at least see a little drop? Like 5 points, 10 points in his approval rating, right? Shouldn't you see something like that? What do you think when you see that coverage and then you see his approval rating go up? Something interesting's happening, and I'll keep my eye on it. I'm sure you guys will too. All right, I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new video at 3 p.m. Sorry, I've been missing a bunch of these, but been on the road, a lot of shit going on. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., I'll see you there. Peace.